Hi, everyone. Today, I want to touch base on what it's like growing up in a dysfunctional family dynamic, what the child goes through, and the outcome of this mess once they enter adult life. I'm Deanna King, for those who don't know me, and this channel is all talk narcissism and codependency. Now, for those of you here who are new to this world, let me take a moment to explain. Narcissistic abuse refers to the manipulative control and emotional harmful behavior exhibited by someone with narcissistic traits. Narcissists often lack empathy and are self-centered, and they seek to control others to fulfill their needs for validation and superiority. In a relationship or a family setting, this abuse can manifest as gaslighting, emotional neglect, constant criticism, and manipulative tactics like love bombing or silent treatment, all aimed at undermining the victim's self-esteem and sense of reality. Dysfunctional family dynamics occur when the relationship within a family are marked by unhealthy, maladaptive patterns of behavior. In these environments, roles are often rigidly assigned to family members, such as scapegoats, the golden children, or the invisible child. In these families, emotional needs are neglected, communication is poor, and boundaries are unclear or non-existent. These dynamics, they prevent healthy emotional development and can lead to long-lasting psychological effects, especially on children who grew up in these toxic environments. In a narcissistic family, the dysfunction typically centers around one or both parents who demand admiration and control, often at the expense of the emotional well-being of their children or spouse. But regardless of whether it's a narcissistic family dynamic or a family dynamic where one person is an alcoholic and the other is distracted and emotionally unavailable, both are dysfunctional and both end up costing the lives of the children growing up in these situations. The parent or parents can be emotionally unavailable or critical. They may rage or be emotionally unstable, and even in some cases, mom or dad might have tried to even commit suicide or talk about it, leaving the children feeling afraid, feeling unsafe, and left with fear of abandonment issues. A child might be told that they'll never amount to anything. They're shown over and over again that they can never get anything right. If they get a B on a grade, rather than supporting the child and praising them or congratulating them, they'll tell them that they should have gotten an A, or if they did get an A, they should have gotten an A plus. Or if they show a beautiful report card or an art piece that they've created, they might just look at it for a split second and continue doing whatever it was that they were doing. They weren't acknowledged. They might even become critical and tell the child that it's all well and good, but a painting or a drawing will get them nowhere in life, that there isn't any demand in art for the future. Meanwhile, the child is 8 years old. The child is never encouraged in any of their talents. And that's detrimental, because if you take a child, for example, that comes home and wants to show the parent a new song that they learned in school, where they start singing and mom or dad or both are really paying attention and they're smiling and they're all impressed, well, that child is going to belt out that song happily. But now change the scenario and take a child that comes home to sing this song to a parent that shows no interest. For example, mom or dad are only half listening as they keep going back to look at their phones and nodding from time to time. That child will lower the volume on their song. Children aren't stupid. They'll start to shrink or back away, anxious to get that song over with. They won't want to sing it anymore. And that's because they haven't been given permission to move forward, where the first child is given full permission. And that bleeds out throughout their whole life. Now, in this scenario, the first child would be the golden child, where the parent or parents are proud of them. That child gets all the attention and praise. So as adults, they more often than not succeed in life because they've been programmed to believe in themselves. They've been given permission to move forward. Now, child number 2 in this scenario that is invisible did not have permission to move forward. They weren't shown that it was okay, that the song they sung was good enough to hold their attention, that they're lovable just the way they are. And so they grow up afraid, never knowing should they or should they not. They doubt themselves. So they grow up unsure, never knowing if it's okay to do this or that. And then they struggle in their adult lives, never really feeling confident enough to move forward. And these children that were ignored or criticized feel that they can never measure up. They're always compared to the golden child. Because no one was ever really there for them, they have trust issues, not only towards others, but towards their own self. They don't trust that they're making the right decisions. Often they were made to feel guilty or ashamed, and the child learns that the only way to survive in a world of not being seen or acknowledged was to do extra for the parent. They learn to please them to the point where they never say no to anything, because saying no will make the parent unhappy. It'll make the child bad and unlovable, and so they stifle their own needs. Often one parent treated the other parent so badly that the child became parent to the abused parent. So they grew up feeling responsible for everyone. They are raised in an environment where they have to put all of their needs aside and bottle everything inside. Meanwhile, they witness over and over again the golden child being praised, their jokes being laughed at, their stories being heard, their talents being encouraged, and their dreams being supported. And as much as they love that sibling, it is only normal that deep inside they feel resentment. But that too gets bottled up inside. They don't want to rock the boat. They become such easy children to deal with that it makes it even easier for the parents to ignore. They never complain. They keep to themselves, often locked in their rooms, and they often spend their days reading books where they can at least enter a living world. This child no longer draws, paints, or whatever it was that they were interested in. There isn't any living life to its fullest anymore. It's become only survival. Don't make waves and do everything you can to please everyone else. Yes to everyone and no to you. They also don't feel that they have a tribe because they never felt that they were an acceptable part of anything or anyone. And often it's just too easy for them to become the scapegoat since they never defend themselves or complain. They feel so alone in the world, and often they grow up feeling safer staying home by themselves. And often when they hit adolescence, they not always, but often turn to drugs or get involved with the wrong people, because the moment someone acknowledges them as human, they'll follow. It's all about survival. But then whatever criticism and complaints that the parents had has now become a self-fulfilled prophecy that this child would never amount to anything, affirming it in the face of the sibling also, and further traumatizing the child, because now the sibling or the siblings have turned on them in judgment. So now they have even further lack of trust in themselves, and in turn they grow up to attract what? Narcissistic partners who abuse them, because they are so easy to abuse. They accept it. They don't leave because at one point they were wanted and loved by their abusers. And if the abuser has now become abusive, well, that's now the victim's responsibility. They feel that they can love them out of it, just like they found ways to make a parent feel better. If only I do better. They also feel an incredible amount of compassion, and they cannot stand the idea of someone hurting because they know what it feels like to hurt. And also because they can't trust their own decisions, they feel guilty for leaving the abuser, because if they do, they will hurt them, which will make them bad. They're also terrified of abandonment. And so in desperation, they'll try to figure out how they can be or do better so that the narcissist won't leave, so that the narcissist will love them again. They'll be in relationships with partners who exploit them. And even though that they know that they're being exploited, because they aren't stupid, but the programming of being unloved for saying no is deep, so they allow it. Where once again, that resentment that they felt growing up of unfair situations is back in full force. So bottling up everything inside continues to be the same pattern as childhood. So with that resentment festering, what do? They get busy. They're busy so they don't have to feel the pain. They're busy so that they can feel their worth. They're busy doing more and more so that the abuser can acknowledge them, even if it's just a cookie crumb, which most of the time it is. They're busy getting more degrees so that they can prove to themselves and others that they're worthy beings. And the more the partners push them away, the busier they get at proving to the partner that they are worthy. Because they're still trying to fix what was broken growing up. There must be a way I can be lovable. There must be something I could do. They take on everyone's responsibilities, and they never ask for help because they grow up feeling as though that they were a bother. And the narcissist never steps up to offer either. So they are never supported, and not because they shouldn't be, but because they were programmed to believe that no one is there. And often those victims end up feeling that what we call the God wound, where the belief is that no one is there for them, including God. The child that was never acknowledged has difficulty setting healthy boundaries. They continually attract emotionally manipulative or unavailable partners. They become codependent and they struggle with fear of abandonment. When it comes to friendships and family dynamics, these individuals might still struggle with family or friends repeating old toxic dynamics or becoming the fixer or the people pleaser in relationships. They're still desperately seeking love and acceptance. In the workplace, their roles manifest in work settings, an example, overworking or letting others take credit for their accomplishments or their contributions. Now, I've spent most of my time on this video discussing the neglected child and how they are affected growing up, but I do want to mention the impact that it has on the golden child also, because being raised in a dysfunctional family dynamic affects everyone involved. The golden child was indeed given more, and many of their needs were met. The golden child was put on a pedestal, expected to be perfect and serve the narcissist's ego. They may receive praise and attention, but only when they meet their parents' expectations often, leaving them feeling like their worth is conditional. When it comes to the golden child, it can go one of two ways. The golden child might and often does become narcissistic. I'm not saying that they develop narcissistic personality disorder here, but they can have high levels of narcissism where they do believe that they are better than others. They may end up looking down on their siblings, continuing to make the rejected child feel unworthy and judged. They can often become antagonistic, where they'll believe that, well, if you're being abused, you made your bed and it's your fault. They won't feel any compassion for what the sibling is going through. They'll go through adult life believing that everyone else should see them as special. But then again, depending on the individual, the golden child might have grown up resenting being treated different and found it unfair for the siblings. And this can cause them to feel guilty and in turn maybe turn to alcohol as they struggle between feeling good about themselves and yet feeling guilt over it. Then we have some that grow up into adulthood feeling competitive towards their own selves. They might have higher than normal expectations of accomplishments in order to make others happy or satisfied with them, because that's how they learned love and acceptance growing up. So it can put a lot of pressure on them. All in all, being raised in a narcissistic or other dysfunctional dynamics causes havoc on everyone involved. What's left is the healing and moving forward if we choose to. We all have a choice. Perhaps we didn't as children, but we are grown adults now, and we can choose to heal. We can choose to move towards forgiving and recognizing that none of this was your fault or had anything to do with you, that these people who raised you had their own reasoning to behave the way that they did, which had nothing to do with you. You just happened to be in the way. You were never not good enough. You were never unlovable. That was just stuff that came out of the behavior of people that were in pain themselves. You were not unlovable nor unworthy. The only reason you believe it is because you were programmed, and programs are just programs, and you can choose new programs. So that is all I have to say today on the matter. So I hope that you can understand that none of this has ever been your fault and that you do deserve way better, because you do. So choose to believe. And we will see you in the next video.